But first, let's start by looking at what's happening right now in terms of criminal attacks on supply chains, with an update from Emea's President and CEO, Torsten Newman, looking at the latest 9 months of recorded cargo crime data in the Emea region. So let's welcome Torsten back to the studio for our opening session. Torsten, over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, thanks again. I hope also you enjoyed the video, so the opening video. As you have seen, the video is really covering our conference we had this year in sunny Amsterdam. And I also would like to mention before I will start my update here, that from a charity point of view, we really collected more than 10,000 euro. And a special thanks to all of you, which we will give again next year at the conference to another charity, to another organization focusing on supporting people with needs. So that's really quite important, but of course we will announce it. But we will also announce later today and tomorrow is really all the dates you already should block in your calendar, especially for 2024, because you will see a lot of activities. But now, let's start. The cargo crime and the landscape in Emea is really changing, and you will see a lot of threats, and in the next 45 minutes, let's really focus on the data. Let's really give you an example what kind of data we already have in our TIS tool, what kind of data you can use, what is important for you to understand, where do we have the risk, where's the criminal threat coming from within your supply chain, and how can you connect the dots and ensure to mitigate your risk to the lowest level possible. As we all know, there's no 100% security. But it's also very important how Emea can help you to secure your supply chain and to mitigate your risk and to come to the lowest level possible. And really also to ensure what you can do to reduce your losses, your impact also on customer satisfaction. So at the end of the day, the goal is to achieve business as usual at all times. And I would like to repeat that again, because I really like what Daniel Ekwall said at our Nordics conference earlier this year, that the goal is to achieve business as usual at all times, which is not easy, as we all know, especially in the environment we are in right now. But what is also quite important, to look back a little bit, So let's go back 10 years, okay? What a difference a decade makes, huh? Everything and everyone looked better in 2013, I would argue right now, so looking at 10 years ago. But it's important to understand when we collected 10 years ago data via the TIS tool, you can see that, for example, in 2013, we collected 1,145 incidents over 12 months. This is what we collect now nearly every month. And what is also quite important, that you can see that we still had an increase already, and we had a lot of support, but we still need your support. So from that point of view, it's very important, that there is no finish line. We always look for continuous improvement. We always look for new tools. We always look for new features. But let's really focus on data. Let's really focus and fast track the next 10 years and look what's going on in 2023. And one of the most important things is, and you can see all the numbers. So just to let you know, for the next 30 minutes, you will see tons of data. You will see tons of information on the slides. I will not read them. So this is up to you. And of course, afterwards, you can see everything live on YouTube, on our Emea YouTube channel. But you can also, see all the presentations later on our website. So if you go to tapaemea.org, you can see all the presentations, all the videos, and everything later on. If you look at the sources where we receive the data from, as you can see, the majority, nearly 90%, is coming from our law enforcement agencies. And 7.7%, or less than 10, is coming from the members. Less than 3% is media sources. And of course, we are also using modern technology. So we have web crawler technology. We look at different kind of artificial intelligence, machine learning stuff to really gather data. Nevertheless, we still see the tip of the iceberg. But what is really important is that especially police forces, law enforcement agencies, they see us as the trusted partner, especially as we are a non-profit industry association, and they all know that we neutralize the data. And that's really quite important. What is also important is that we provide them access to data they don't have. We provide them solutions. We even create police reports out of the TIS tool. So if you go to some countries within the European Union, and if you look at their police reports, we create the statistics you do see right now. And everything what you see right now is from the TIS tool. All the data, all the breakdowns. You know, for example, that we have cargo thefts now in 67 countries. Everything is coming from the TIS tool. In the first 9 months of 2023, only 4.4% of all the reported crimes do have a loss value. Nevertheless, this loss value is already representing more than 550 million euro. And the average loss, you know, is for the major crime is more than 2 million euro. And it's also quite important that we had more than 48 incidents with a loss value of more than 1 million euro. And more than 200 incidents reported a loss more than 100,000 euro. So it's a significant impact on your supply chain. And as you can imagine, maybe you can survive 1 hit, maybe also 2 hits, you know, but if you have more than 2-3 hits every year with a value of more than 1 million, it's really an extreme thing. And of course, we have extreme contributors over the last 9 months. You know, like we added 40,000 incidents from the South African police services. And I would like to say a special thanks really to Massimo and Joshua, based in Johannesburg, because they have an amazing contact now, and they re-established an amazing contact with the South African police services and added more than 40,000 incidents. A little bit the downside is that SAPS is not providing any financial data. Nevertheless, it's not always needed, because what you want to understand is, where do we have the hotspots? Where do we see really, for example, you know, where losses occur? And this week, actually, we sent out a warning, you know, to all our members, because we have seen an uptick on a specific parking place in Germany. And of course, we share this data. And of course, we say, this is something you need to be aware of. In some cases, you know, avoid this parking place, go 10 miles more or 10 kilometers more, and then your risk is going completely to another level. What is also quite important, if you look at the Emea region, you know, that we receive significant data. So if you look at some of the data, you know, more than 1,000 reports, nearly 2,000 from Germany already, close to 4,000 coming to UK. A lot of data is coming from Sweden. We have amazing support from the Swedish police forces. We have really an amazing contact. The same in Denmark. You know, actually, I will go to Odense in Denmark in 2 weeks' time, and I will present the TIS tool, TAPA, and our solutions to all the police heads for the entire Danish country. And I would like to say special thanks also to Helle Pedersen, you know, and to Lars from the Danish police, you know, because they really invited TAPA, as they are TAPArized. How can you not be TAPArized? So, and this is really the important thing. But again, it's very important. All this data is coming from the TIS tool. Everything what you see right now is what you can create. Everything what you see, what we present right now, is what we will give you at least once, when not even twice or 4 times a year. But you can create everything on your own, because you know your supply chain better than we do. We look at the entire industry picture. We look at everything what is going on right now within the supply chain. But it's also quite important to understand, a high crime rate reflects better reporting and better intelligence sharing. It doesn't mean that the risk in UK or in Sweden is higher than in Italy. It only means that we have more transparency. Because let me go back once again. And if you look, for example, at Italy, okay, do you really believe that we only have 558 incidents in Italy? I have my strong doubts on that. And I will show you a slide later on where you see even another number, which is even more interesting. So fast forward again to the slide where we have been. So low levels of reporting means, obvious, that we have potentially more supply chain risk, because we have no transparency. We don't know what's going on. You know, we have some numbers, but we don't have the entire transparency. And as you know, your risk mitigation, your risk management process is only as good as your data is. And one of the biggest things where the team and we are now focused on is really data accuracy. Data. And how do you analyze the data? And we can only manage risk and prevent losses when we know the threats we face. And you all know that. That's very important. So what we do here right now is we said, okay, forget the big ones, forget really the completely major contributors, like the 40,000 reports from South Africa, like the 100 million US or euro loss, in Belgium, or right now the 200 million euro loss in Germany. And if you look at this, and if you look at from another angle, you will see with the 2,175 INS report, we still have every day, roughly 835,000 reported in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we are coming very close to 1 million euro every day reported crime. And as you also know, a reported crime is the tip of the iceberg. It's also quite important if you look at major losses, like losses above 100,000 euro. The average value is coming close to 1 million. So it's a massive impact. And what is also quite important, if you look now at the top 10 countries, as you have seen before, South Africa, it is number one, UK, Germany, but this is traditionally over the last really decades. But it's quite important again to understand it's not always the reality. And it's also important, if you go to the next slide, for example, major crimes, all the big losses, every hit above 100,000 euro. And now compare this slide with the slide before, the total number, and now the major numbers. And now you see, for example, that the major number in Sweden is only 1. In Denmark, there was not one loss reported above 100,000 euro. And in Italy, it's 0. And again, as an industry association, we have our strong doubts that this is reality. Nevertheless, as the TAPA-TIS tool, we have really the best tool in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and this is recognized by Europol. And as already said, nearly 90% of all our reports are coming from police forces. And right now, we have more than 300 police contacts in Europe, Middle East, and Africa alone, giving us data, sharing intelligence. But of course, we have also amazing member companies sharing with us all their data every month, every quarter, every year. And I would like to say it again. If you have a report, please report the incident. Please do so. It's really important, that we get visibility and also warn other members what is going on in our world. So major crimes, as you can see, we have a lot of incidents reported from Germany. We have a lot of incidents reported from France, and you can take a look at all the numbers. But what is quite important is really the total value. Again, it's more than 500 million euro, only we listed. Of course, we know all the recent studies from the European Union, like 8.2 billion euro losses. Or, we know that the FBI gave a warning with 40 billion globally, or the German government, it was a white paper which was established really by 3 big industry associations in Germany, the German Insurance Association, the German Logistics Association, and TAPA, where we really showed the ministry that the losses in Germany has an economy impact of up to 2.1 billion euro. The average value is interesting, that you already go above 2 million euro if you look at all the major crimes. So that's really quite interesting to understand that. But I think it's also quite interesting to really take a deeper look and a deeper dive in what kind of products are the most targeted products within the top 5 countries. And whilst you see that in South Africa, for example, it's a lot of high-value material, it's phones, it's cash, it's electronics, it's metal, and it's food and drink. But what is interesting over the last 2 years and over the last, really 12 months, what changed in the top 5 countries is that fuel theft is number 1 in all countries. And metal is really part of the top 5 in the top 3 countries. So that's really quite interesting to understand that. And, over the last couple of years, we have more and more car manufacturers joining us. And here you can see also, especially in Germany, but in other countries, what is the reason for that? And that's also quite important. So data. And if you look at all the different things, and Sam already mentioned that, right now we have more than 100,000 single incidents listed in the database. But that's not the only thing. We have a lot of big data. We have a lot of really data coming from sources where they say, I'm aware of a major loss, but I cannot give you the details. And I will come back later to you on this one, but we still capture this data. That's also quite important to understand that. So a lot of the details are really, or a lot of the incidents is where the devil is in the detail. And that's really also quite important to understand that. And if you look at, the incidents, the major incidents by product, miscellaneous, of course, it's number one. Why? Because we don't know what product is lost. But it's not important because we know where it happened, when it happened, and we know the value. And that's for us, from a risk mitigation point of view, by far more important. Because 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it was the smartphone manufacturers which were under attack. Then it was pharmaceutical. Nowadays, it's all industries. Whatever criminals can steal, they will steal it. So what we need to understand is really the current threats. We need to understand with the data we have, and the inside view, what is going on. And what we can say very easily, that all products are attractive to cargo thieves, whatever it is. So for example, this weekend on a very famous highway in Germany, the A1, we have seen in one night that criminals slashed 67 curtain sides. And they have stolen a tremendous amount of, products. And the police right now are still investigating, and we don't know what the impact is right now. But we are also in contact with them to get a better understanding, because 67 trucks, in one night, it is a major thing. What is also quite important still to understand is, that the main risk is still on the truck. But it doesn't mean it's on an unsecured parking location. That's also quite important, So, and we can show you more and more numbers on this one. Of course, you need to do a deep dive into your tool. Of course, you need to take a look in all the data. But if you look at the data we provide you already, you have a kind of a first intro. And again, you can go into the system as a TAPA member. You can deep dive into the system. You can create all your statistics. You can download everything, and that's exactly what we are doing. So what is also quite important, especially in Europe, is that violent crime is rising. It's still a small percentage, but it's still a very, very, very major crime. So violent attacks against drivers, unfortunately, are going up. And it's also quite important, that fraudulent pickups are going up again. And please have in mind, now we are in the peak season. So now Christmas is coming. And of course, it's quite important, that especially now, the risk is going up again. As we always say it, due diligence, create the awareness, and at the end of the day, create a mindset change. People need to understand where's the risk. Drivers need to understand where's the risk. Drivers need to understand what they can say, what they shouldn't say. Because still 70% of all losses are insider knowledge. And what is the fuel theft factor here? Of course, as I said, it's a major growth trend in 2023. First of all, it's driven by fuel costs. If you stop on a Monday at a fuel station here in Germany, 1 liter costs you €2. If you go there on Tuesday, it costs you 180. So now you can imagine, if you look at it, and if you go for a truck, for example, 150 thefts are right now reported in our database. And the total value is already more than 370,000 euro. And that's really quite important to understand that. So I know it's not a major loss, but there's an interruption on your supply chain. And it's not only the fuel theft, there's always a damage link to it. There's always something, where you need to go to a repair station and your truck will stand still for maybe 1 day, maybe even 2 days. And of course, when the truck is empty, it cannot drive anymore. So there's always a customer impact. And that's also quite important. But what we can also see, that we have by far more and more and fewer recorded crimes are linked to unsecured parking. So that's really interesting, how the risk is changing and how the risk landscape is changing, especially in Europe, but also in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But in Europe alone, if you look at it right now, and let's very shortly say that in South Africa, for example, only 0.03% of reported crimes are linked to unsecured parking places. That's a very, very low number. But remember the European urine study, which was also based on TAPA numbers, where in the past we had 67%, 56%. Now in UK, for example, it's 6.1%. In Germany, it's still at 25% or 26 nearly. But in France, it's also dropping to 17. And in Sweden, it's going down to 3.6. So what is the reason for that? Of course, one reason is, the SSTPA program. But the biggest reason is also the TAPA PSR program, because the industry is still having by far more secured parking places and is establishing on a faster way more secured parking places than anyone else. We need parking places, and there's no question about that. We need parking places all over Europe, and we still support and we will support everything what is linked to parking places. As you also know, TAPA Emea achieved this year that we are in a position to also train you on the European Union SSTPA program, and we are very proud of that. But we still need to drive the TAPA PSR program, and we still need to drive everything what is possible from the industry. And we have a lot of partners doing it for us. So let me mention really, for example, Bosch, let me mention Snap and others. But they drive really parking places, parking places, parking places, parking places. And even when they are not certified, but we still list them because we look at them and we try to guide them towards the certification. And you will see that later in our numbers, when we show you certification numbers. And we also show you when numbers are going down. And that's really quite important. But we always have really an explanation behind that. And we look at the root cause and we immediately start actions to see what we can do again from the industry for the industry, because it's an industry challenge. And that's really quite important. We are in a really unprecedented time. It's really crazy what's going on in the world right now. And this automatically means that we have more risk. I hope you like our studio. I hope you can see the background. And there's a reason why it's very red. I'm not saying that we are on orange alert or red alert or whatever, but unfortunately, over the last 2 to 3 years, we see a tremendous increase related to the risk within our supply chain. And as you know, we have the conflict in the Middle East, we have the conflict in Ukraine, we have a lot of challenges with, staff shortages. It's every day in the press, that we have a driver shortage, we have a driver shortage, we have a driver shortage. We have a lot of impacts on ports. We have a lot of impacts, because of the high fuel prices. And as you also hopefully heard, that in the next couple of weeks, the German government decided to increase the cost for the German highways for trucks by nearly 100%. And this will have another impact. There's no doubt about that. We have still the impact on the migrants, the migrants crisis. We have a lot of impact on the cost of living. We have a lot of activism, especially in Germany. We have the so-called Klimakleber, the guys who try to save the world and then they block highways, they block streets, and they glue themselves against the road. We have extreme weather situations. And again, fuel thefts, and by far more and more. So going through the entire story, going through all the numbers and all the details, it's very easy to say it again. Every product in the world is under attack. Of course, there are still some products which are more important and really, they love it more, the criminals, than other products. But when they can steal something, they steal it. Even when it's only, a chewing gum or whatever, But everything is attractive on the market. And you can sell everything very fast. You can sell it tomorrow. So we just been approached by a Swedish company, and they said to us, the truck was stolen on Monday and the products in Sweden, and the products already popped up on Tuesday in Russia, in Belarus, and really going into the area of Middle East and Africa already. So they have a very, very efficient supply chain. And more risk means more opportunities for criminals, as we all know. And if you look at Europol, it's a strong partner for TAPA Europe, Middle East and Africa, a long-term partner. And we shared with all of you this report, but it's quite important to understand that when we say cargo at rest is cargo at risk, this means because organized crime groups are attacking exactly this part of your supply chain, one of the weakest parts when cargo is coming to rest. And it doesn't mean automatically the truck or parking place. No, it's in your warehouse. It's in front of your warehouse. At the second we stop, your cargo is at the highest risk. And Europol alone identified more than 5,000 organized crime groups in Europe alone. More than 180 nationalities are really focused on organized crime. And as you know, it's a massive market. Look at the recent case in Germany, a huge company in Germany. They suffered an internal loss of more than 200 million euro. And they are not in the end. They started less than 100 million euro, then it was 100 million euro, then it was 140, 180, and the last number was that they strongly believe it's more than 200 million euro. And that's really interesting to understand that. So we know what's coming next. We know what's going on. And a lot of things, what is also quite important to understand, of course, it's linked to digitalization. We as Tappa Emea, we drive digitalization like crazy, as you can see it here in our studio. And as you can see it also at the conferences, as you can see it with TIS. We just released, by the way, TIS 1.5. So within 12 months, we already had the 5th release with more features, more functionalities, and also, of course, enhanced functionalities, especially we really adjusted with the feedback from you as the member, but also with the feedback we receive, especially from police forces. We also adjusted, one example, a European Union filter. Why? Because I presented at the European Union and there was a request coming from France, can we have a filter from the European Union? And one day later, we created the filter. And now we can look at the numbers, what's going on in the European Union. But what is quite important to understand what's next, of course, it's cyber. It's cyber, it's cyber, it's cyber, and cyber. And a lot of small companies and mid-sized companies still do underestimate the risk of cybercrime. And unfortunately, they are also not prepared. And it's a cost factor. That's also quite important. But this threat, like all forms of cybercrime, will increase over the next coming of years. And if you attend a Tappa training, and if you compare the Tappa training now with the Tappa training 10 years ago or 5 years ago, 5 years ago, before the COVID crisis, we had classroom trainings. So you saw Markus Prinz live in the room, or one of our trainers. Now, everything is digitalized. We have even avatars right now. So if you go to the new training, right now, you see me or you see Markus, but actually it's our avatar. And right now, we speak English to you. But with one mouse click, we speak Italian or French or Spanish. So we can choose out of 81 languages. It's an amazing opportunity. But what is also quite important to understand that modern technology makes life easier, but not always or nearly never more secure. Because modern technology, is also used by the criminals. And whilst all the Western countries discuss how they can regulate artificial intelligence, how will you regulate that, when it's coming from countries like Russia or China or North Korea? You cannot. It's very important to understand that. And the risk with this modern technology is really going to another level. As I told you already, if you look at the avatar technology, I must say, if you don't know it's an avatar, you strongly believe it's Markus. And of course, it is Markus. But it's a fake Markus. It's an avatar Markus. And if you look at how easy this technology is, and I will be, I'm also presenting, new cyber threats to the supply chain. So we have, for example, a flipper, and we test the flipper, and you can read really every freaking data from access control cards, from your passport, from credit cards. You can have access control. I tested it in the hotel last week. So I had my hotel card. I put the flipper against the hotel card, and I was in a position to open my hotel door with the flipper. Or a jammer. We have now 2 brand new jammers in Tappa Emea. We are allowed to use them. And it's crazy. It's crazy how good they are working. So there's no GSM anymore. There's no GPS anymore. And even if you have a Wi-Fi, whatever, you can jam everything, whatever you want. But are we also to blame? In a fast-paced, dynamic, and sometimes low-margin world of supply chain logistics, many factors can open the door for cargo crime. And of course, sometimes we need to take a look at ourselves. And of course, sometimes we need to say, okay, the constant commercial pressure, In many cases, unfortunately, as I said, creating awareness, train your people, train your trainers, create a mindset change. The driver needs to understand where the risk is. A huge lack of risk awareness. Because the interesting thing is, when I speak, on a daily basis with TAPA members, in many cases, they still do not understand the value and the opportunity with all the data we have in TIS. Of course, staff shortages, background checks. Do you have the right people within your operation? Look at the case in Germany. Insider. Everything was insider. 200 million euro impact. Outsourcing. Even we outsource as TAPA Europe, Middle East and Africa. So I'm really proud of the team. And, if you look at the team we have based in the Netherlands, with Ab and his team, our team, and then in Germany, then our people in India and our team in South Africa. But we still have outside and outsourced support because we cannot do everything on our own. But it will increase your risk. There's still a lack of due diligence. There's still a lack of understanding, especially quite often on a senior executive level. If you go to the COO or CFO, and if you tell them, yeah, I'm the security guy, they always see you as the guard or the guy who's opening the barrier, the CCTV system, the access control, but they don't see what is under the level of the sea. So they only see the iceberg, but they don't see what is below the water level. A typical Titanic example, and that's what you need to understand, and that's what you need to tell them, and of course there's a link and coupled with low penalties for offenders when they are caught, as we all know it, so the judgment on this one is really low, and that's the reason why organized criminals are more and more attacking our supply chain. Mitigating supply chain losses. Okay, so let's now really go and understand. But again, you will see a lot of information. Read it, take a look at it, look at the slides, look at the YouTube video, pause it. But what is quite important that you need to ask yourself the question: am I doing enough? Is my risk mitigation, my risk management process really what I need? Do I need to tailor-gate something? Can I jump on industry standards? Can I use the industry standards on a way where my risk is already going down by 50, 70, 80, 90, or even 96%? Because if you look at the numbers we receive from TAPA members, we receive numbers every month, and they say to us, I reduced my losses to 86%, because I implemented TSR in my entire supply chain, and my losses decreased by 86%. You need to understand the MO. You need to understand where criminals are attacking you. You need to understand where's your risk. And sometimes small adjustments can change your risk dramatically. As I already said, changing a parking place, changing a delivery address, changing a route can mitigate your risk dramatically. Do not stop. Do a driver change. So again, very, very small stuff. And what is also quite important, and that's the reason why we are already here for 23 years, and as you all know, 2025 is the 25th anniversary of TAPA Emea. But if you look at it, the facility security requirements, the trucking security requirements, and the parking security requirements are key pillars of TAPA Europe, Middle East and Africa, and TAPA on a global perspective. And Markus Prinz will guide you through the latest news and updates of everything what is going on with standards later today. So stay tuned on this one. It's very important. We have the intelligence. We have the biggest database in the world on cargo crime, especially in Europe, Middle East and Africa. But I'm really, really proud. If you go now to the TIS tool, look at the TIS tool and look at the right corner, and you will already see that TAPA APAC right now is testing the tool. And you also see already incidents in the APAC region. So as a TAPA Emea member, you can see TAPA APAC incidents. And as a TAPA APAC member, you can see TAPA Emea incidents. Right now, it's the test. So it's only a small, really, representative from TAPA APAC are testing the tool. But we already adjusted everything. And I strongly believe that on the 1st of January 2024, you will see a big announcement that TAPA APAC will join TIS, and all the data, all their certification data on FSR, TSR, GSR, and more will be integrated and visible for all of you in the TIS tool. Let's have a very quick snapshot, but Markus can give you a better explanation, because this is really this is Marco's heart, this is what he is doing every day, so this is keeping him awake in the night, it's certification, it's trainings, it's the standards. And now, of course, I can focus and say, hey, look at FSR, it's growing by 70%. Look at TSR, it's growing by 20%. Ooh, what happened with PSR? It's very easy. It's very easy to explain that. We are in a renewal cycle, so which means we are checking right now what's going on with the parking places who reported to us that they fulfill our requirements. And we are waiting for answers. And that's the reason why we list them already. No, I'm sorry, but I cannot list you anymore as a parking place because you never came back to us. So which means we need to come to you. We need to control your parking place if it's still okay. And I know that Marcus and his team will do it over the next 3 to 6 months. And I know that the numbers will go up again. But we are perfectly fine to show you these numbers because we know it will change. And that's really quite important. And of course, we will also add numbers from SSTPA. And I must say, if you look at it, for example, if you go and if you would like to certify your parking plates against the SSTPA program, and if you are using a TAPA accredited independent audit body, which is also an EU accredited audit body like SGS or DQS, then you will automatically receive also a TAPA PSR certificate. So it's a no-brainer. It's a win-win situation. You receive 2 industries or 1 EU certificate, 1 industry certificate for the price of 1. So that's really quite important to understand that. It's also important that we need you. Okay? We need you to reach new heights. I will not say it for the last time. Okay, I will say it again. But give us your data. This is the most important thing. Share whatever you receive. We are strong because of you. And you make us even stronger. But it's still important to understand that the resilience is at risk like never before. Like never before. And that's really quite important. So please, okay, continue on this one. Please ensure that you share with us your intelligence. And what is also quite important, what we hear now for the last 17 years, by the way. So we established IIS roughly 70 years ago. And it started very small. Okay. Yeah, but Thorsten, we cannot report our cargo crime statistics because we need to protect our company reputation. 100% agree. There's no doubt about that. We cannot identify a customer which has suffered a loss. Also perfectly fine. You're absolutely right. We don't have the full information. I said it already again. It's not needed. We don't want this information in open source. It is not an open source. And I will explain you later on what we do to protect all your information. And I need to be and remain anonymous. Also absolutely right. And that's exactly what we do for the last 17 years. So let me give you some examples, okay? We will never ask for your company names. And even if we find a company name or a product description, anything what can have a hint to your company, we will delete it out of the report. We will erase everything. And when we know that your manufacturing site is in a specific city, and of course, when you see more and more losses around the city, and it's always the same description, it's very easy to identify it's this manufacturer. We also eliminate that. That's really quite important. We ask for data and we ask for a lot of details. But if you don't have them, we are perfectly fine to receive less data because we will adjust it. As already said, just to give you a good example, we receive data from amazing members. Okay, and I don't mention names right now, but we receive numbers also from big manufacturers. You will never be in a position to identify it's this manufacturer because we don't show where it happened. In your database, because we have 2 databases, that's also quite important. We have a members database, which is the one you see, but we also have a so-called hidden database. And in the hidden database, you see all the numbers. And these numbers and the details, you will never be in a position to see them. But if you see at the total number, for example, if you go to Germany, and if you look at the details in Germany, you will see right now approximately a little bit more than 1,000 incidents. But in the back end, we have more than 1,800 incidents. The total number and the total value is calculated on this one. Even the risk is calculated on this one. So we know it happened in this area, but we will not tell you the city. And there's a reason for that, because this company is based only in this city. And as I told you already, everybody knows when it's this city, it's this company. And that's the reason why we avoid that. So don't be shy to share your numbers. Nobody will identify it's you. And I know, as I said already, that we say that already for the last 17 years, but it's a constant improvement process. It's constantly learning. It's a constant reminder, because I hope you loved the data, and I hope that you loved what you have seen right now. And I hope that you will now contribute. And again, don't forget to tell TIS. If you have something, please send it to the TIS team. It's a Tapper team. And the Tapper team is working on everything. And I personally receive at least twice a week an email from the team and saying, Thorsten, here's a report. Can you please guide us and say, what can we say, what can we not say? And in many cases, I say, scratch this, 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 and this, because it's not needed. Because otherwise, people will identify it's this company. And I would like to say really also a special thanks, a really, really, really special thanks to Satya, Neetu, and the team based in India, because what they did for us over the last 9 months, it's amazing. It's outstanding. And you can already feel that this team is living the TIS tool by heart. And another special thanks to Joshua, because he was doing, all the crazy work with 40,000 incidents. And you will see more, as already said. So far in October 2023, in 1 month, we added again nearly 250 incidents. 57 out of that provided a value. Average loss per major crime, 239,000 euro. And still data are coming in. That's also quite important. Governments are asking us, what is the latest data from 2023? And they ask us in January. And I'm telling them, I can tell you the number in January 2025. Because we receive a lot of data 1 month later, 3 months later, 6 months later, even 12 months later. And that's also perfectly fine. You can provide us your monthly statistics, your quarterly, your annual, also later, as long as you provide them. Okay, because we are building everything for the future. And we are in the strongest ever position over the last 23 years. And we are ready for the next phase of growth. So we invest really in a lot of new tools. We are already discussing new standards. Okay, and I strongly believe that the Tapper supply chain cybersecurity standard will be rolled out also in Europe, Middle East, and Africa soon. But we still hurdle a little bit with GDPR requirements, which are not applicable in the rest of the world. But in the European Union, we need to follow the GDPR. We look for new intelligence tools. We look for new sources. And if you have a great police support and a police contact, please tell us. And we are going in direct contact with them. Everything is free, by the way, for police contacts. Access is free. All the details are free. Training is free. So we train all the police guys for free, because we strongly believe this is what we need to do, because they give us the data. We have a great industry focus next year. So we will focus on specific industries. We will guide you more training solutions, as already said. So later this year, you will already see all our training material. Everything will be in French. And then beginning of next year, you will see Italian. You will see German. And of course, we are also looking at a Turkish version and potentially also an Arabian version. Of course, we are ready with the Russian version, but everything is right now in a park position. And that's also quite important. We also need to understand if we need to adjust the types of the events and how we can attract more diverse membership. And of course, but if you look at the last 12 months, I'm really proud that we won another great names. And I don't want to mention, that like all the names, but I would like to mention some specific names really joining the Tapper family. And there's a reason for that. Tesla joined just now. A chocolate manufacturer, Lindt, joined. And if you look at it, BMW joined. Guess joined. Again, high luxury clothings. If you look at it, all the big brands joined. Sports clothing joined again. And of course, we know Luke, come on, from Nike. He's already a Tapper ambassador. He's Tapperized for the last 20 years. But now we have more people coming and joining, and that's really quite important. And we look for partnerships. Partnership, 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 partnership. So come back to us. We are open for ideas. We build more. We will do more. And if you have questions, either send it to info@tapaemea.org or send it directly to me. I'm always happy to receive questions, and I'm always happy to answer your question.